All right. Welcome in, coaches. We've got a bunch of you already. I think more are going to be coming in. We've got Paul here ready to go. So we're going to get started here in just a second. Um, if you guys have questions as we start going, a lot of people already submitted questions, and I've shared those with Paul, so he'll be able to address a lot of those. If questions pop up as we start going, just throw it in the chat, and occasionally I might chime in and read some of those questions to Paul. You can also unmic and jump in there with a question if you'd like. But we've got Paul. It's very late out in the UK. I think it's 1 a.m. for him right now. So it is incredible that Paul's staying up with us to help out. Illinois badminton. So, with no further ado, I'm going to let Paul introduce himself and let him start. So, here we go, Paul.
Well, a very good evening to you all. Obviously, it seems a long time ago since I was with you in Chicago. It was a fabulous afternoon, so hopefully you enjoyed it. Great to see so many questions. I have a second screen over here where I can read those. So we'll try and get through as many questions as we can in this particular allotted time. If we don't finish them all today, then I am going to do another one of these with Scott, hopefully next week, but we'll come back to you on that one. And then if you want more of these, then more than happy to do them. So it is totally up to you. You let Scott know what you want. A big thank you, first of all, not just for you for coming online at weekend, but also to Scott for organizing this. And this all happened because of Badminton Warehouse. So a shout out to the guys there at Badminton Warehouse, Ajit and Nikhil, for all they've done in the background as well. So thanks to them. I'm just going to dive into the questions. I think the best way of dealing with this is start at the top and just reel my way down. If I lose you at any point, please just shout out and we can go back through it. But I'll try and get through as much as I can in the space we have available. I do have a little pad with me which I can scribe on and draw diagrams. So I use this quite a lot with international players when we're on our calls. So let's see what we can do and get through these questions. So first question I have is, do we have a list of drills that I'm willing to share? I will share anything with you. There are no secrets in this game as far as I'm concerned. The more we share together, the more we learn together, the better for everybody. So you're looking for drills on defense, doubles, singles, just defense. Okay. So a really good one for defense. You'll have to excuse my drawing because I'm going to have to try to kind of draw in a strange way. But this is one we can do with four players on court. And I'm very conscious of the fact of scaling up. So I'm going to show you a way of scaling this a little bit further. So I'm going to put a player here and a player at the front of the court. So hopefully you can see I've got those two dots there. So this side is going to be forehand, and this side will be backhand for a right-handed player. So what we start with is this player here is going to lift the shuttle to the front of the court. So just high enough above the net that this player can hit down. And the idea is they target just shuttles to the backhand side. That's all they're going to do. And they're going to do it in just a firm way. So the player who's defending has to make the right shape and hit the shuttle back to this player. So they're going to play forehand to backhand. Then what we're going to do, we're going to make it a little bit more difficult. And instead of forehand to backhand, which is a straight line, now we can start, this player can start targeting body shots. Or the third angle is and go to forehand. And so we've got one player here who has to hit back to the side it came from. And this player who can hit anywhere around that player. So this is a progression. So from going from one side, we can go to the other side, and then we can alternate them if we want. We can add body shots in. we can then change it again and make it so that player one, this is player one, they can hit straight or they can hit cross court. So now this player here is hitting on the forehand, which is that side, and the backhand. So this can become a cooperative drill, or it can become a competitive drill. Great for singles and great for doubles. What it's doing in game of doubles in particular, but it's good for racket skills, and I do have a racket with me, is we can start the player here and shape, shape, or shape. So we're making a player have to work all these different areas around the body in a defensive way. So we can do that for singles, we can do it for doubles, but to get the basics of moving a racket very quickly and always recentering. So lots and lots of little drills from going in a straight line to adding a second area, to adding a third area. And then this player, who's always had to play back to one space, can now play either side of a feeder. So it becomes very, very cooperative, but very competitive at the same time. So that's just one of many, many ways in which you can develop this. But this is a great starter. I still use this now with really good players, but we can speed it up. And as we get faster at this, it gets a lot tougher. So that's one great way of doing this. Now, I like to scale things up. So if I've got players working there, I can also have another player on this side and another feeder on this side. But I can also use all this rear court and have a player there. Even though we haven't got a net, we can still be doing hitting down and having a player and a feeder and a player and a feeder at the back of the court. So there's no reason why we can't have 2, 4, 6, 8 players on court hitting shuttles all at the same time. So if we've got those situations whereby we have to get a lot of players on court, this is a great way of doing it. So there you go. There's hopefully a good start for you. This is also good for beginners to get them started. Now, just as I move this out of the way, let's see if we can answer another question. Drills for beginning freshman players. Okay. So with freshmen, the first thing we've got to do, get a racket in hand. We've got to start getting the forehand grip, backhand grip, and the ability to change very quickly between grips. That's absolutely crystal key, because if we don't get the right grip here, then whatever happens is going to go completely wrong. We know how we need to use this racket. So forehand, backhand, just to get that basics to start with. And then what we did in last November, we taught you about the platform, and that if we get them to use a platform and start making shapes. So the exercise we did in November, the very first exercise I did near the net, working in this zone here, was making a shape on the backhand side and learning about the master controller and the pushing and then the pop, the bounce back, which was the power punch, as I called it. So we had 2 basic skills that we developed in that area, and then we scaled it. We had lots of players on court. So we had them in here, we had them in the middle, we had them on that side, we had them in the rear court on both sides, and we scaled it completely. And we had 6 players at the front, and we had another 2 there, another 2 there. So we actually managed to get 10 on court for that exercise. So that's the kind of thing again, utilizing the right shapes at the front of the court, and then we can develop that into the various skills. So those skills we taught then, which was the pushing, and the hand isn't moving, but we're going to the left, straight, right, flat, up. So that was the master controller. And then we put the power punch in, which came from the use of thumb and fingers and this little bounce back. And the racket head didn't at any time really go past the hand. And those skills, those two master skills, we use a lot. And as we talked about them on the day, it wasn't just about here. They were repeated in mid-court. They were the serving skills. They were also the defense skills. They were also shots above the net when the racket head comes up and it's a little tap, which is a kill, or a push down. So we actually covered a lot of game skills just in those two hand skills. So if we can start players on those skills, then they've already got a huge number of skills in different areas on court. They've got the baseline serving, they've got the baseline defense, because they know the shapes they're going to make. So it's a great way of getting anybody started. Right. Have we got any comments or questions so far? No, I'll keep going then. Right. How to increase speed in athletes' footwork. There are tons and tons of drills for this already on YouTube. Peter Gader, who's one of the Yonex legends, he's done a number of clinics that you see online talking about fast feet when he's really making them move this way, which is up and down, up and down, up and down. And then he changes from that to that, so going forwards, backwards, and then side, side. And then you mix them forwards, backwards, side, side. And that's one of these basic fast feet drills he has. The number of drills you can do if you can put the ladder on the floor. I'm sure you've seen these exercise ladders, and you get people doing all those little steps and across and what have you. There are tons and tons of YouTube videos using these exercise ladders. They're brilliant for footwork in terms of speeding it up. Skipping ropes are good for that as well. But also, if you don't have one of those exercise ladders, that's an exercise ladder in itself. You can have players going side to side, up and down, through and back again. So all the drills that you see in the exercise ladders, you can do using lines on a badminton court. So you don't even need the actual piece of equipment. You could be using those lines, any way you want. So tons and tons and tons of easy drills for you to do to improve athletes' footwork. So hopefully you can find plenty to go there. If not, then Min Scott will have a chat and I'll go and find some for you. Let's just see. You'd like more resources on the drill that I introduced in the clinic in November. It was on the focusing on the wrist and forearm movement, then transition to a clear. Right. Okay. I know what you're talking about here. So if you're on the call tonight, what we did in November, we talked about the basic overhead, and we have a shape that we start here and then we bring the racket through. And that's the first shape we should see as we bring in the racket through. And that is like throwing a spear. If I throw a spear, wherever I throw that is where the racket would have gone if I'd thrown it. So that's like the pointy end of a spear. And that is a basic throwing shape we all know. Whether it's a ball in the hand and we throw, we have that before we release the ball. And so this is a basic throwing action that most people will know, whether it's badminton, javelin, or what have you. So from here, what happens is the hand comes up and turns and keeps going. So it's a straight line. And eventually, and I'll see if I've got enough room here, you'll get to that shape and the hands come in. So what we should see on a regular basis from here is a straight line down the racket side, whether it's right-handed or left-handed. If we see this straight line and we get this N shape, then we know we're doing a good thing. If the shuttle's hit above the head, we can't hit in a straight line because our arc is coming inside. One of the key things we talked about was this, the elbow. This is the launch pad. If we drop the elbow, we can't launch. Now we've changed from hitting with the hand to hitting with our shoulders and our arms, and everything is low and there's not much power. So we know this has to stay up and throw from here. And by doing that, we should see that action. I've got plenty of photos of players that I can send, Scott, so you can relay them, of players once they've hit and they finish, and you'll see this is a common pattern in all the top pros. So there's a reason for that. That's the best way of hitting. So if you can follow that straight line approach, then you will find that players will hit better. So hopefully that is going to help you. How I teach that, excuse me, is I start off with having a player holding a racket and I just get them to high five. If I high five from here, you get the racket coming through flat. So the racket comes up and turns. All that happens then is it keeps going till eventually it has to get to that shape. So I start with a high five and I keep the elbow up. I want to get to that shape because the racket's slightly on the down. So if I can get them to hit anything where they turn in, then I'm starting to get what I want. And I must remember to throw to the right of the player with the right-handed. A lot of people throw straight through almost above the head. So I've got to try and throw in the right space. And if I can get someone to feed that, I can get that, which we know is a good pronation. If we can do that, then fantastic. We are going to start to see that player hitting clean and hitting straight. The other point we mentioned within that drill is the satellite navigation system on a badminton racket. It's something you won't see on YouTube because it's something I invented, but is actually is true too. If we think of the top of the racket, this is a part of the racket we can feel. You know, we can always feel where the head has gone, or I can point the head in different directions. Wherever this is pointing is where the shuttle will go. What I can't feel is this. I know I'm going to hit shuttle with it, but I can't feel it. But I can always feel this. So when the shuttle is high, this is my satellite navigation point. If I'm playing the backhand and it gets flat, now my navigation point is here. If the head tilts, then it moves to the corner. So many times you will see a player hitting a shot here, and there's your satellite navigation point. Wherever that corner goes is where the shuttle will go. And that's the same on the forehand side. It tilts. We rarely hit a forehand with the racket flat. Usually we tilt down. So we're always working that corner. So whether I hit forehand or hit backhand, it's the same corner that I'm going to hit with. So again, little things like that can help you with accuracy. That makes a huge difference. Let's see. So hopefully that answers your question on the wrist and the forearm movement. Doubles rotation. Okay. Teaching HS players how and when to rotate properly. Right. Okay. Now, someone mentioned shuttle throwing machines in here. I've never used one, to be quite honest. I've seen a few, but they are very cumbersome, sometimes difficult to set up. So I have never used one. I have never considered buying one because I've not been able to store one. And I visit so many locations in a day, it will be totally impractical for me to have one. And so I feed everything with my hands and my racket. Um, but if you can't use your racket and need something, um, then let's see if we can put something together for you. They're not great on doing rotation systems where you have to adapt the feed to good players. So if we start off with basic rotation, hopefully you have come across some of this rotation before. Just to get an idea, has everybody come across rotation before or understand what doubles rotation is about? I don't know if you can put in the text box or something so that right, thanks, Robin. That's a yes there. So good. Right, okay. So we know the kind of reasons why we rotate. So the basic one that I use for newbies when we're doing rotation is I will have two players and I'm feeding from here as a drill. And all I'm going to do is push the shuttle in here and they push the shuttle back to me. So the shuttle is traveling there. And I'm sure that you might have seen this on YouTube. So that is my basic where I'm doing this. So a player has to hit once and rotate that way on this side. And the other player comes in and they move forward, they hit, and the rotation is this way. And that is the basic rotation, just to establish that we're moving up the center on court. And we can do the same on that side as well. And we had a second drill in here where they hit the first one, but I might hit a second one down there to make sure as they're coming through, the racket is up and they're intercepting. So that is a drill I use many times with someone to start rotation off. And that works absolutely fine. Once they understand the concept of where they're going, then we want to start looking at the different areas in which we can use rotation. So the next stage for me is always to gain the understanding of a short lift. And this needs two elements to be good. First of all, positioning of a front player. And two, recognizing this front player. And we're going to put them in here for now, which is where they should be positioned when the shuttle gets lifted. And I'm going to feed from here. What I should be seeing is this play, it should be always paying attention to where that player is. So if I don't see that quick look around to know where they are, then they've no idea where they should be rotating or not. So the key drill is always about this player paying attention first. And then I would lift a few in here and then I put one short and maybe somewhere in this zone that the player is going to be hitting. And then I would be looking to see this player indicating by stepping back that this player can hit and come on through. And there are drills we can then do to bring this player through. So it could be we feed one here, and one here. So they actually have to hit three shuttles on the way through. And on the way back out, this player moves out and then we can rotate the process time and time again. So hit what we call short ball, and then normal kind of length as well. So that's one of the areas in which we can use rotation. Just to save a bit of time and a bit of paper, if I use the same side of the court but just change it, the other side is when we brought this front player forward and they're more in this zone now. And the feeder is playing net shots to bring this player forward. And then as they move back off the playing the net shot, we're pushing into mid-court. So this player is now recovered. I've got two players in close proximity. I'm looking for one to move out and let this one come forward. So I add that into the mix. And that's a nice little drill as well in terms of rotation.
Mm.
So I add that one in. So there's two simple drills. Another one which is often overlooked in gameplay is the return of serve and actually having a rotation in return of serve. So very quickly, if I bring in a server here and the returner is here and the partner is there. So that's the partner. So hopefully you can see all that quite clearly. So I've got server, a partner, returner, and partner. And let's just imagine for one moment that the returner is the strong hitting player. Now, if we get a low serve into here, and this player can hit very fast into this corner, they can actually move across to here, and this player starts making a way across to here. So one's gone towards center, and one's moved over. Most of the time, if this shuttle is flat into this corner, 90% of shots are going to be played in this area. It's never going to go over there, and rarely will it go there. So if it's coming straight, this player's waiting now. And what they're going to do is if it's lifted, now they've got a short lift. The idea for them is they can smash and go in, and the original strong player is going to make their way out. So we can set that up as a routine from a serve, punch corner, very flat. So this player's got very little time to get to it, move across, and we're creating almost like this circle to allow the weaker player from the rear court to hit and come forward. If a shot is played to the net, then they just step forward anyway and take all the net play. The only time this player will be involved again is if they manage to get the shuttle cross court. So that is another way of designing some kind of rotation that works. So hopefully that gives you a few more ideas. So we've gone from hitting 1, 2, 3, which is the first one, the mid-court rotation. Now we've got one from return of serve as well. Once we've done all that, we're really into hitting shuttles everywhere, going attack, 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 and still trying to find these spaces, mid-court, short lifts. So we encompass all of those kind of elements from the first two drills, but all court. And they've got to keep these people very active. So we can do a lot more in terms of developing that. So hopefully that gives you something to work on as well. So we've done rotational drills. We've done footwork as well. Single shot combination strategy. That's a great one now. Some brilliant questions. Okay. So single shot combination strategies. Let's start off with something very, very simple. Is we can have two players on court and busy. You've probably done some of these drills already. So we can have a player and a feeder in half a court. We can do the same on this side. And basically, high lift, drop shot, return to net. So we see drop shot, return to net, high lift. Drop shot, return to net, high lift. That's a very, very basic one, but gets both players moving. And that's one of the basic ones I've used quite a lot in the past. if I want to take this a stage further, and I'll use this side of the court, um, we can introduce smash instead of a drop shot, and we get blocks, net shot, and then we lift again. And then later on, we can randomize it so that instead of a set pattern, when the high lift comes in, the player can hit a drop shot or a smash that brings in the net returns and then the lift again. Then we can take it a stage further that the player or one of them, as soon as there's a lift and they play a downward shot, instead of playing a block, they can lift again. So it starts to become more gameplay, and we can make that as complex as we want to, but always start simple and then add the next thing, then the next thing. And there's always an element to go off. Now, one of the things that I've done a lot of, and I use it even this week, I've been using it, is limiting a player in terms of where they can play to. And the reason I'm doing this a lot at the moment is to make sure that the player's using good footwork and the right stances, because there's often a problem with a player hitting and not being in the correct stance. So I'm sure most of you will know that when a player hits shuttle downwards, they should have an attacking stance. So as they come forwards, their right leg or their dominant leg, the racket leg, should be forwards. And if that is the case, then I should see a player move from, say, rear court back into a position that allows them to come forwards and take shuttles towards the net or to go back into either corner. So they should be able to do that. And then we're using split steps and movement patterns all around here. And they're playing all the shuttles back into one zone. It could be the front court. It could be we'll use only the half court. And it could be we'll limit it to singles lines as well. So we really are limiting and making them work their shot production. It could be I don't want any shuttles going in this front area at all. And I want shuttles to go only into a specific area. So it could just be, I want everything to come past the front service line. So there's so many different ways in which we can make it tougher for this player. We can also make it so instead of giving them high lifts, we start giving them flatter lifts. So we can push the footwork considerably in all directions. Then I can add two feeders doing the same thing with one player and they're covering a full court. I can have a third feeder in the rear court, and then suddenly they got opportunity to lift and go into defense. So there are plenty of drills just from a basic footwork drill and being in the right stance that I can take to almost 4 versus 2. I had the pleasure of being at the All England's 2 weeks, last week actually, think about it. And we were watching the Japanese do 3 versus 2 and 4 versus 2 drills. And it was very interesting that even when they were doing all those drills, everything was about the basics. Not make it complicated, do the basics well. And that's what we saw all week at the All Englands. Basic skills done to an exceptionally high level. So for me, this game isn't about trying to make it super complex, but we're just constantly trying to push the basics further and further up the ladder. And if we can do that, the player development is there. But we have to focus on basics, make them good always. So we've got shot combinations where we started off there. We've got shot combinations that we've gone from 1 versus 1 all the way down to 4 versus 1. So there's so much we can do to open the court. Another combination we can do very quickly, because I'm conscious that we might run out of time, with players is we'll have if it's a very, very good player, we've got one player on court and we can have one feeder initially, and the feeder is behind the line, players in the center, and we are literally hitting to make the player work from there and work in there. So we're hitting there, then we're hitting in here, then we're hitting in there, we're hitting in here. And then we can make it, instead of you going there and there and there and there, now we can make it, you got to go there to there, there to there. So we force them to go, you're playing straights, now you're going to play crosses. And we can make that player have to do an awful lot of court coverage with good footwork, and a feeder is not having to do very much work. They're either picking up a shuttle in this zone or this zone. But if you're not doing the feeding, what's so good about this player is doing split steps, and they're going to the front of the court and maybe playing a net shot over or a lift to the corner, net shot over, lift to the corner, straights, net shot over, lift to the corner, cross. So there's so many combinations you can bring into this as well that make not just one player, but both the players work really hard. So feeders are not there just to feed. They have to be doing all the right things too. If they are, then fantastic. We're getting the feeders working, players working. It's just a different level of workout and a different skill set. But each time we are still working them really hard. So that's another great way of working on singles. We'll just add one more in there. We can have a player from here doing the same basic thing as hitting into this area, soft blocking there, and we're looking for a spinning net shot. So that is a completely different routine again, but we're focusing on moving forwards this time to hit the shot in this zone to get that spinning net shot. And that's quite difficult when you're having to come from a corner, get into position and hit a net shot. So that could be one of the extra for the better players to be able to come in and really play a good spinning net shot if you know how to do it. So there you go. There's another element you can do. Right. I think we've pretty well got through some of these questions. The last one on here, teaching doubles, rotation and drills. So we've done that, and we've done good footwork drills. Now, varsity level players, not beginners. Everything we have done is basically going to take a beginner, but we've also covered quite a range of players all the way through to good, really good players. So hopefully that would have answered that question as well. So are there any other questions you've got on there, Scott, or any comments? Hopefully there's people still on the line with us and not decided to disappear already.
Still got plenty of people here. If anybody wants to throw some questions in the Q&A, I'm going to check the sign up form right now again to see if anybody added any more questions. Um, Going back into footwork, one question for me, just specifically, what are some things you teach about like the actual technicals behind the footwork, not just improving the speed with it, but how would you teach a beginning player the technicals of the details of footwork?
That's a great question. Right. Okay. You might not see my feet, but I'll try and get far enough back. Some of the things that I do with players when I'm working with them, and you might just about catch my feet in here. I'm working to make sure they recognize that width is key, angle is key, so that when they move, we're not going to move in a linear fashion. So we see a lot of players that want to go in a straight line like this. And the problem with doing that is that we can't control our momentum. And what movement is about is not just getting to the shuttle, but it's also controlling momentum. So we start them off very simply by moving to the net, and we might just get them to do feet together step and feet together back. And so we get this kind of movement all the time. And then we're getting the hands to be in the right place. And it could go to that side and go back. So that's the very basics in terms of moving forwards, getting from the width. And if you don't have width, you can't do it, because as soon as you go narrow, there's no feet together anymore. So I don't know what I'm going to push from. So getting width starts to use the big leg muscles, and it starts to give us a foot to push. And the push is so important, because if we don't get that, we've got no movement. So from the going forwards point of view, we know we're going to the right, the left foot is pushing. If I go to the left, it doesn't mean that the right foot is pushing, because it depends what stance I'm in. But at least it gets me started. So if I'm in attacking stance, which is my racket leg forward, I can go in either direction, and I'm going to push off the back leg, which is my left foot. If I'm left-handed, I can do it from that side. Now I'm going to be pushing on the right foot, and I can go to the left, I can go to the right. So it depends. If I'm in defense stance, now that changes, because I can go to the right, I need my left foot pushing. But if I'm going that way, I might split there and go there. So that's my starting point going forwards. When I talk about going backwards, one of the key things that I think people miss is that when we go backwards, we have to make sure that the feet stay on their own train track. So every time your right foot moves, it's on a path. What I don't want is the left foot and the right foot to start getting in each other's way. So it avoids accidents, and it's best practice. So when I move back, I want the feet to have their own little train track. It might be narrow, but it means they're not going to be colliding. If I get that right, and one of the ways I can practice that, literally, I will get the lines on the court and have players right foot to the right, left foot to the left, and going backwards to the rear court. And they could do it all these different lines we've got. We can have players doing this. So it works a treat. And it gets them used to this movement. And we know one of the great moves is this chassing, where it's like feet, when I say feet together, they don't actually come together, they're close, because they've got the train tracks. So that's a classic movement backwards. The other one we know is the crossover. So the left foot comes behind and then comes through. And to do that, it's like a little jump between one foot jump to allow the other foot to land. The thing that people forget about is not just going backwards, but then the next bit coming forwards. So if I go backwards this way, my feet are pointing to the right. So when I've hit that shuffle, my feet are now pointing to the left. So when I come forwards, I want to come forwards with my feet pointing to the left rather than straight. And the reason for that is when I walk straight and I'm moving fast in a straight line, my top half is leaning over. It's like I'm dipping for the tape in 100 meters. Well, that's not going to help me stop. So my momentum is traveling too quickly and I can't stop it fast enough. But when I actually move with my feet pointed to the right, now I'm more upright here, which means I can stop quickly and go in another direction. So I use those as all my basics for footwork. And then everything we develop from there is all about split stepping. So once we understand the patterns of chassing, crossing over to go backwards, or the movement coming forwards, the feet together, which is almost like the chassis going forwards. Once I've got all those in place, I'm 90% done. All I've got then is little jumps that we might use, what we call jump outs. And you can use those. But I use all of that a lot. And we can teach virtually moving everywhere on court using those basic movements. And all the top players in the world are still using those basic movements. And then I can develop that into things like scissor kicks at the rear court or block jumps in the rear court and the differences between them. And I can start to develop the process of getting the jumping and landing once I understand how to get there. So that's my starting point for movement.
Awesome. We have another question in the chat there. Is there a good drill for receiving a flick serve when you have the receiver standing close to the serve line?
That's good. Um, one of the one of the great bits of fun, shall I say, I have with players is if I line up, if I get on a court and I take the players and I line them up here and I get them to move backwards and I'm looking to see who can move back fastest. So that's my starting point. And then I'll stand in front of one and then I'll chase them to the back of the court. And it's amazing how fast they go. And if I'm really in a bit of a wicked mood, I will be, as soon as I chase them, I go, 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 go. And it scares the living daylights out of them, especially the first time you do it. And one or two of them have just fallen over at the end because they just couldn't stop laughing. And I've done this with squads of players, but it shows how fast the feet can go when they are pushed. Oh, where can I get one of these from? I actually had them printed. So go to a local printers, show them the picture, and that's all I did. And I got loads of pads printed. So it's not that you need to go anywhere and buy them. Just go and find a printer somewhere. Right. So on the flick serve, we know that the basic movement is chassising. So how a player sets up to receive serve therefore becomes very, very important. And what we tend to find, we can't use what the pros use. That's the difficulty when we are at a certain level. Reason being, we don't have the physicality to get to the rear court fast enough. And we probably don't have the leg strength at that moment in time. So if we are developing those things, eventually we get there. But when I see players set up a lot of times, a top pro, and I think make sure you can get my feet in again, a top pro can literally just be like this. And they're ready to push from the back foot and step on to hit that. But they can push that fast off one leg to be going back and you can jump a huge distance. But for most players, they can't do that. So there's a wider stance and a step through to get the return on the low serve. But the key then is your left foot, your non-racket leg. If it's pointing straight, I'll show you. If it points straight and you try and push, what happens physically is that your weight goes from the front of your foot to the back of your foot, straightens your leg, and you haven't moved. So you don't get a push. There is no power push in there. So if you turn your foot, now the pressure comes into the ball of your foot. Now your leg will fire like a power piston. So if you've got that happening and you push your bum out a little bit, so what will happen is it brings the center forward. Now you've got speed. So if I kind of do it from this angle, you see from there, most players are quite upright. And as soon as you move back, they're going this way. Well, as soon as you do that, your steps shorten. But if you can push your bum that way and go first, and I have got a video on this on YouTube, it's called Moving Backwards in Balance. If you can do that, then suddenly that push from the left foot and that movement there is going to send you back really fast. And it stops this arching of the back. And if you can do that, then you probably find you get a lot more speed And then it's very fast chassis. You've got literally one and up. So you only get one full chassis in and you're launching on your second, and that's how it's going to work. And it's very effective. And some of these questions, these would have been great in November. We could have so if it come this November, then if we manage to do it again, then hopefully we can get a bunch of questions before we even arrive in the States. And then all we'll do is we'll spend the afternoon answering all your questions. And if we get a couple of players, then we'll fire shows all over the place with them. So who knows? That might happen. Any other questions, Scott?
I threw into the or the comments that YouTube video you were referring to, so everybody has that
Ah,
now. Uh,
good.
and then a real basic question, probably our last one, but I know it's a very basic, but I know a lot of us struggle with it. Like, we understand the shape that we're trying to achieve, but it's so hard for some of our girls to keep their elbows up. As soon as they start swinging, that elbow comes down and they lose all of that form and technique. So, what do you do with your players that have stubborn bodies and it's very hard for them to get used to keeping that elbow up?
Oh, um, funny enough, this did happen to me. Everything I design comes from these challenges and how to overcome them. And sometimes, I almost feel like, without sounding incorrect, I feel guided. And there was one occasion I was really having a problem with this guy, and always this dropping. And I just asked the question, how am I going to solve that? And this simple line came in my head, use the net. And I thought, what does that mean? Where did that come from? I thought, I'm going to go with this. So what I did is it only works up to a certain point, because if you get someone who's 6 feet tall and the net's 5 feet, but it's a starting point. So I got the player and I put his elbow on the net. And then basically I threw shuttles up there, and he had to hold the net with one hand, and he had to reach over the net to hit. And he just suddenly launched the shuttle beyond anything he's ever done. And the look on his face was just amazing. And he did it 5 or 6 times. And it was just from holding on to the net here, putting the elbow up, and then up and launching, going into a high five. And he got it. He absolutely got it. So that's one of my little tricks that I have in the locker, if you like. The other thing I do with players quite a lot, and I was doing it today with a 10-year-old, was what I call lock it, fire it. And it's all about, you've got to keep your racket up here and you can just fire to there. And you can't fire beyond it. So it's no big swings, just throw and stop. So you've hit through and that's your stop point. But we can do that. We're not trying to hit power at this point. We did it first of all with drop shots, and it's almost like floppy hitting. And it's just right, go on, just bring it, just hit, just hit. But you can't let the elbow down. And we try and do 5 and then say, right, rest. And you can develop it from there. So you can just keep that and say, right, now we've got that. So we're going to hit 5 of these drop shots. Right, now let's make it bigger. So let's take the same, lock it, fire it, but this time I want you to hit half a smash. So suddenly, bang, and it's hit. And I said, right, okay, now let's just see you hit a clear. But we're not trying to hit the full length. But funny enough, he did. And he actually knocked it out the back of the court. And he just went, boom, and it flew. And that was tonight. And he was hitting that far out the back of the court. This is a 10-year-old boy. So it's not about strength, it's about technique. And he got it. And this is a kid whose hands were down here all the time, and he was like throwing it up there and trying to hit. So he's getting used to it now and recognizing that's why the players do it there and hit. And it worked. So there's a couple of different examples of things you can do and how you can take it a little bit further. So I call it lock it, fire it. So they can't unleash until they're ready to throw, and that's it. That's the shot. So there you go. So hopefully that's a couple of little things that really really work as well.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Paul. Really, really appreciate it. We're gonna try everybody again in a few weeks, build up some more questions, get Paul back on, and do this again. But I can't thank him enough, and he's just doing it for the betterment of our badminton community, which is just unreal. So thank you very much, Paul. We really do appreciate you.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's been my pleasure. By the way, if anybody just wants to email me, I have no problems with you doing that. It's Paul at badminton-coach.co.uk. You know, if you've got questions you want me to answer, again, I'll do my utmost to get them answered and send them back to you. And usually I respond to everything in 24 hours. Just watch your junk mail. The problem with the word badminton, it's got that little word admin in the middle of it. And
Mm,
sometimes that ends up in junk. But I will always try and answer your questions. So more than happy to. But it's been great chatting to you tonight. Thank you, Scott, for all you're doing. And again, thanks to Badminton Warehouse, because without them, this wouldn't be happening.
100%. Yeah. I will include Paul's contact information in an email and send out this video in case you want to watch anything back. So thank you again, Paul. Thanks everybody for joining us. We'll hopefully see you in a couple weeks. Take care.
Okay. Bye bye now.
Bye, Paul. Thank you so much. Go to bed.
I will.
All right. Take care.
All right.